I would recommend artists use lead white in oil painting. There's basically two common whites that are used in oil painting. There's titanium white and there's lead white. But titanium white has its own benefits. It's a really great, opaque, cool white. But there are things that happen with lead white that cannot be replicated with any other paint. First off, the pigment used in lead white, when it's mixed into an oil paint, starts to create something called metal soaps. And these metal soaps make the paint layers more flexible, they make them more durable, and they actually make them dry faster. I know that just by using lead white, I can have a painting that is going to naturally have a more durable film. The feel of it painting kind of, if you use it enough, you'll kind of feel what I'm talking about. And on top of that, I know that if I was to change nothing about my painting practice and not use any mediums in my painting, I can make my paintings dry faster if I just incorporate lead white onto my palette. The next reason why I would use lead white has to do with its ability to mix into colors. Like, here, let me demonstrate this for you. This is titanium white PW6. I made this myself. It's cold pressed linseed oil and pigment, nothing else. This is lead white. Specifically, this is a Rublev lead white #1. It is made with lead carbonate, PW1, and linseed oil, nothing else. If I was to compare the two, I think it's important to note the lead white is stringy and it has something known as a thixanthropic property. Think of ketchup. When it is left alone, it will hold whatever shape it is put into. The second you agitate it, it will start to loosen up and it will start to move in the way that ketchup might move if you start hitting the bottle with a light, consistent force. Titanium white has less of that thixanthropic property, but especially when it's homemade or made with just pigment and oil from whoever you can get it from, it does have a really nice kind of stringy property. When I draw these down and really thin these paints out, they're fairly similar in that both of them tend to cool down some. The lead white has a little less opacity, it's a little less brilliant of a white, still a very good white, and it draws down and becomes transparent easier. The titanium white tends to go a little bit cooler when it draws down. It has a little bit more of a blue undertone, and it also is just naturally a brighter, more opaque white. This is where the real comparison happens. I'm going to take cadmium red from Williamsburg. I'm going to start off with very similarly sized piles of paint. And I'm going to match them so we've got about a 1-to-1 ratio for each one of these paints. Let's start with the lead white. Really nice tint. It's staying fairly true to the actual tone of the cadmium red, so it's not tending to go orange or violet, for example. Now let's do the titanium. Cooler and lighter. Take a look at that comparison. When we look at the titanium white tint, it's more violet and it's a little bit lighter. In comparison, the lead white has a more true to red tone, and it's actually a little bit darker. It's not as strong a tinting strength. We need to know that titanium white has a stronger tinting strength than lead white. Let's do this one more time. Equal parts of that tone and titanium white. Equal parts tone and lead white. Just look at that comparison. I can't believe that these would be the same color. There are equal parts cadmium red and white in each one of these. And the lead white is doing a much better job at actually keeping the chroma up and the tone of the color true. The titanium is really just bleaching it out and cooling it down. It's turning it violet, it's turning it into a duller looking color. Cadmium red has a really strong tinting strength, and even despite that, the titanium is just totally blowing it out. Unreal. Can't even believe those are the same color. This shows me that I have more range with lead white. It means that I have a greater sense of control when it comes to tinting colors down. And it also tells me that when I make those tints, the color that I'm starting with is going to stay true to hue when I add white to it. When I add titanium white to that, it starts to change the color and it starts to change the temperature. So I think it's a natural question to ask, if lead white is such a good white, then why is it so uncommon relative to titanium white? Why are some countries even banning it in artist materials? So artist materials writ large are part of much larger industries. And when it comes to painting materials, all painting materials worldwide, artist materials are they're an insignificant small fraction of a percentage of what's known as the coatings industry. So as artists, we don't have control over the distribution of the things that we use usually. In the 20th century, we were using lead white like it was going out of style. Painting our walls, painting our furniture, painting our windows, painting the outside of our houses. It's like anything that needed painting was going to get lead paint on it. And the reason it was is because it doesn't crack very easily. That's not a good use for this material, because when we're using common everyday things that are naturally going to get extreme wear and break down and flake and get stepped on, get put into our HVAC system, get inhaled, right? We can see how having lead paint on our furniture and our walls is not going to be healthy for us, because it makes it more likely for that material to get ground up and ingested. In the case of fine artist oil painting, there are very easy and practical ways to use the material safely. That is not an answer for the coatings industry that wants to replace lead white. And we're also finding alternatives like titanium to be much safer materials for these same uses. So the coatings industry starts switching over what would be the dominant white pigment within the industry, and the mighty and powerful fraction of a percentile artist materials industry is not going to have sway over the direction of that. That is why titanium white became the more dominant white on an artist palette. Don't get me wrong, it's actually a really nice white to use. I will have it on my palette sometimes, and I will sometimes make a mixture of lead and titanium white so that I can have the flexibility and drying properties of a lead white mixed with the opacity of a titanium white. It's not sincere to say that it's a replacement to lead white. It became a replacement to lead white in society because the ways in which the whole society was using that pigment were not good. Because lead white is not a good paint to cover a water pipe or paint your house wall, does not mean that it is therefore a bad paint for an oil painting that's designed to last decades or centuries. So in the scheme of this, you do you. When it comes to my palette, if you ask me what I have on my palette, I sometimes have titanium white on my palette. I always have lead white on my palette.